Hi everyone, my name is Marta Ferenczi and I work at BirdLife Australia, and today I would like to talk about a new tool to protect important migratory shorebird habitats in Australia, and these are the site action plans. So I would like to start with this slogan of my team, which is: we are awestruck by the migration of shorebirds and we want to protect and conserve this phenomenon for future generations. Of course, as all of us here at this conference, we would like to live in a world where migratory shorebirds are appreciated by people and human disturbance is reduced. And also, we would like to see that instead of habitat destruction, we can provide natural habitat for migratory shorebirds, especially on the stopover sites, since the migration is already really challenging for these birds. And then with natural habitat provided, of course, we would like to see that peaceful roosting sites and also dense food sources are available for the migratory shorebirds. So what can we do about this here in Australia? So what are our goals in achieving this vision, to have a world where migratory shorebirds are safe and appreciated and they have their natural habitat? So I put up this little sort of timeline, which I call the path to action, that's going to introduce you what's been happening in Australia so far and what we are doing currently and what is the future to protect important migratory shorebird habitat. So the conservation of migratory shorebirds in Australia has seen a marked evolution over the past decade, with government and conservation organizations such as BirdLife working together to achieve improved outcomes for migratory shorebirds. So the National Shorebird Monitoring Program has started in 2007, and then the key objectives are to improve knowledge of national trends in populations at sites and better understanding of the drivers, and also to increase number of skilled bird counters, and established a network with increased number of regularly monitored sites, and also to ensure that that we share all the knowledge and the results of these bird counts with the site managers and decision makers, leading to an improved conservation and management of shorebirds and their habitat. So there's a couple of important documents that I would like to discuss. The first one is the Wildlife Conservation Plan that was published by the government in 2015. The WCP's objectives are to protect important habitats, to conserve wetlands in Australia, and to minimize anthropogenic threats, and to identify knowledge gaps in migratory shorebird ecology. And then the next one, next document that is really important is the Migratory Shorebird Conservation Action Plan, the MSCAP, that was published in 2017, which addressed these key threats in close alignment with the government's wildlife conservation plan objectives, and it provides strategic approaches. So the MSCAP is like a national umbrella plan, and that aims improving collaboration on the conservation of the migratory shorebird species, and it's coordinated by BirdLife and was developed in a series of multi-stakeholder workshops, and it provides strategic approaches to actions. So the Migratory Shorebird Program currently that we're doing, it coordinates specific projects to meet objectives of the WCP and the MSCAP. And part of this process, creating accessible knowledge for research, stakeholders, and decision makers is really crucial. And so we will arrive next step on our little timeline, and we will talk about the National Directory for Important Migratory Shorebird Habitat. So the directory project was funded by the Department of Environment and hopefully going to be published very soon. So the National Directory of Important Migratory Shorebird Habitat identifies all the sites in Australia based on the international and national significant criteria thresholds, and the thresholds correspond with the revised population estimates. If you would like to have more details on that, I'm very happy to send you some details and answer some questions after the presentation. So I'm just going to put up this little map where you can see there's a lot of dots. So it means Australia is pretty important for migratory shorebirds, where we have 151 internationally important shorebird areas and 282 nationally important migratory shorebird areas. I will get back to this map later. So again, we are back to this path of action graph, and then we will arrive at the main topic of my presentation, which is the side action plans for important migratory shorebird habitat. So what are we actually doing? We have all the documents and really important plans published. We understand the issues, the threats. So the next step in our program is to develop side action plans and to see what these side action plans can do. So the side action plans target key sites and their communities and identify all the threats and the key management needs specific to that area. They fine-tune existing management plans, if there is any, for example, national parks management plans, and they are developed by a local stakeholder process, which is really important. And they list all the strategies and fast-track high-impact actions that we would like to change specifically at that site. And the goal is to establish a long-term sustainable and local ownership of these plans. So the local community would look after these side action plans and make sure that are being implemented. So the issue is that, as you could see, that we have more than 400 sites, and at this stage we had to choose those where we had funding for. So for example, we have projects with the government, and some of the sites are funded that way, or we have also private donors who support this program. On this next graph, we have the side action planning process. So we're going to go through with the assessment, the engagement, the implementation, monitoring, and the revision parts of the side action planning processes. So first, the assessment. So as I already mentioned, there's quite a few sites, and we try to target key sites based on the national and international criteria, but also more. There's some sites which are internationally important, but doing reasonably well, but we know some other sites where there's a lot of threats, really high human disturbance, for example, or pollution, and we are trying to focus on those sites, again, depending on funding. The next step on our path is the engagement. As I mentioned earlier, engagement with the stakeholders is really important at the key sites. And in the side action planning workshops, we identify local requirements for migratory shorebirds. The next one, the key element of this process is the implementation. Of course, the implementation of fast-tracked priority actions at the local level. There are several actions, from putting up signage, community events, working on the local hydrology, and so there's several, for example, weeding with the local community to deal with vegetation encroachment, but I will mention a few later. And then the next step in our side action planning process is the monitoring, which is really important, that we're gonna now produce all these side action plans, list all the actions that we would like to see implemented, and then monitor the efficiency of the actions taken at the local level towards the objectives outlined in the Migratory Shorebird Conservation Action Plan. There's a really important that we tick all those goals that are listed in the MSCAP, and we would like to see if these side action plans are working towards our goals. So the last step is the revision, that again, after 5 years being these plans we have developed, and then we see that they are being implemented, we get back to these sites and just put up some of the covers of the plans, of the side action plans that have been already finalized. And after 5 years, again, we would review these plans. So I just would like to show you where we are at the moment. So in South Australia, we are developing side action plans for 10 sites, and in Victoria for 6 sites. The South Australian sites are already finalized. The Victorian one's going to be finalized by the end of the year, and we have 4 sites in New South Wales that they are also finalized and hopefully published very soon. So what we have achieved so far at these sites is that we identified relevant threats to all of the 20 sites, facilitated stakeholder workshops with land managers and stakeholders for all of these sites, ran community engaging workshops with the local communities at each of these sites, and drafted up the 20 side action plans and finalized 9. All the 20 going to be finalized by the end of this year. So I would like to show you, as I mentioned earlier, a couple of actions, because people often ask, okay, what are the actions? It really depends on the site, but this is one of my favorite graphs that is from a really important, historically important migratory shorebird site, Lake Haldon. And as you can see with the red and the blue line, they indicate the flooding time of the lake bed, so when there is water available in the lake. And unfortunately, at the moment, how the hydrological regime of the site is handled, that flooding time doesn't overlap with the presence of the migratory shorebirds. So this site has been historically really important, and unfortunately the birds don't really use the sites anymore, because when they would be around, there's no water, no mud flats left. And we know there has been lots of research done that with a regulator on the local drain that could be handled, and the reconstruction of the hydrology regime could result in a longer flooding of this site, and that would help that migratory shorebirds could use the area again. And there are also actions with the community included in the plans, for example, weeding to deal with vegetation encroachment, or shorebird ID workshops for local rangers, or also for local volunteers. Or also we get actions included about specific sites where a signage is needed if there's a lot of human disturbance happening at a site, or of course there's specific events, recommendations for community engagement workshops as well. And the next step is the implementation, which is of course a huge work, and then it again needs a lot of funding. And but we think that because we prioritize all these actions, there's high priority actions and also the ones which are medium priority, and some of them are quite easily implementable. So I think if there's a local community that can be empowered, some of the actions can already start without a massive amount of funding. Just as a comparison on this graph, I wanted to show you where we are. So like the green dots are the ones at the sites where we developed the site action plan for already. And then just as a comparison, I put up the red dots, which are the internationally significant sites. So we have a lot to work on. And we, of course, trying to work towards that all those red dots would turn green. So we would see that more of these internationally important sites gonna have a plan, a specific plan where fast track actions can be implemented to help to protect this habitat. So as this is just a comparison, what the present looks like is that the green part of the circle represent how many sites we developed a plan for out of all in Australia. And then if we could at least develop plans for the internationally important sites, that would look much better. But of course, we would like to see that all these really important habitats on the Flyway are protected for migratory shorebirds. And I just referring back to my slide at the beginning, of course, all of us have a vision, and we would like to see that this world, the migratory shorebirds are appreciated, and we can provide natural habitats with roosting sites and dense food sources available for these birds. And we see the site action plans can work this way. So I will leave it there, and I would like to thank our partners, Department of Agriculture, Water and Environment, the Helen Macpherson Smith Trust, Hunter Local and Land Services, Limestone Coast Landscape Board, for the support, and I would like to thank you for your attention.